So the last time I did one of these videos, I had talked myself out of an existential crisis. Um, I still watch that video back from time to time because I suffer from something that I am starting to call just chronic existential dread. And today is one of those days where I'm just, my brain is just out here thinking that why am I here? It's not really like a suicidal kind of thought, but it is more like what's the point? It's just feeling pointless, feeling like I shouldn't be here, feeling like everything is meaningless. That is what I'm feeling today. And I mean, on a grand scale, I do believe that. I do believe that everything is meaningless until you give it meaning. And I don't know, I guess I just wanted to talk about it today. It's been a while since I did a proper just me talking about my brain kind of video, like a mental health video. So that's what I wanted to do. It was either going to be about talking about my eating disorders, which I'm not ready for, or just talking about how unmotivated I feel, because I do feel as though it's something that a lot of people go through. I feel like a lot of people come to a point in their lives where they feel like, what's the point? Everything just sucks. And yeah, I hear your arguments, I hear your clamor, I hear that, you know, people have bigger problems, that, you know, you still have food, you still have a roof. But that's not really the point. It's more, and I understand. I'm in a place of privilege, you know. I'm not out here actually suffering. But it's more just my brain being a complete defeatist and being the worst. And that's just, I just want to address it. So I would appreciate if I was allowed to do that. And I feel like it's valid for anyone to be able to complain. And this is going to sound silly. I'm an Aquarius. Okay, I'm not gonna say, okay, forget that I said that. I have a problem opening up emotionally. I genuinely do. It's something because it's something that has been built over the years, living in a family where I couldn't really be myself, living in a family or a situation where I couldn't really tell anyone what was going on because I was always so afraid that my family would be split up. If I, you know, told my teacher or told, you know, anyone above that, so the police or someone else, what was really going on at home. So it's my inability or my lack of ability in, you know, conveying how I actually feel stems from that, I think. And I really want to just give myself the time to feel everything I'm feeling. If you're triggered by things like this, please do click off the video, unsubscribe, do what you have to do. I don't want anyone to suffer for this. You know, go your own way. You don't have to watch my content in the slightest. But this is what I want to do today, and I'm sorry if that's just not for you. So what happened? How did we get here? So October's just been an absolute bitch to me because it's just been just a really difficult month. I don't want to call it the hardest month, but it's been a pretty difficult month. You know, everything's just sort of fallen all at once, as it does with me. And you know, winter's coming up, so I kind of expected things to get a little harder because winter is just a time for change for me. Like, things change in winter for me. So I was kind of expecting it. I was more prepared for it than I was in summer when everything fell apart and I lost my mind. So I was kind of expecting things to go south a little. And it's just been difficult, and I've just been sitting with it, not really talking about it. And I guess today's the day to talk about it. So I think one of the biggest triggers, not just that, like October being bad, like I think we all experience bad times in our lives. It's not an excuse to just stop being. But one of the biggest triggers was that I really was at a dilemma with okay, it's two things. It's two things. I'm just doing this very off the cuff. That's why this is messy. It's two things. The first thing is my relationship falling apart, and I know that that happened up in August. That was a little while back now. And the second thing is that my job, I fell out with my work. So let me go over. I feel like I've given it enough of a grace period, but with my last relationship, the one that was very public on this channel, maybe I shouldn't have done that. But I was the one to end that relationship. For those of you who don't know, who aren't aware, I was the one to end that relationship, and the reason I ended it was for a number of reasons. Some of them that I want to keep quiet, just so that the person involved, doesn't feel hurt by it. But one part of the reason was that I felt as though my significant other had become my shadow. Like, I had become an overbearing presence on that person. Because the person who I was in a relationship with was, quite frankly, not... they hadn't found themselves. They didn't know who they were. They didn't know what their opinions were. They didn't know what their place was in the world. And I'm very self-assured in some ways, and I feel as though I just absorbed them into my person, and I felt really terrible about that. Like, I genuinely felt very, very awful about it, and it was one of the reasons why I wanted to end the relationship, because I felt as though I was this controlling person who just dictated how my significant other should be. And I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to be a controlling force in any kind of relationship I have. I don't want to be in a position of power. I don't want to be in a position of just dictation. I just want to be myself and allow other people to be themselves and just interact on that basis. I understand that there are exceptions to that, but ultimately that is what I want in a relationship. Two adults just behaving like two different adults. And I just felt like I was taking over, and there was a power struggle, and I just had so much control over this other person, and I hated it, I hated that, and I had to end it. And my ex, he is the nicest person in the world, and I think that he desperately wanted to keep the relationship together. And to be honest, to an extent, so did I, because, I was in love with him. But I couldn't do that, because he was just becoming the guy in the background, you know what I'm saying, like, of my life. Instead of having his own life, he was just in the background of mine. And I didn't want that for him. And I knew that because of the kind of person I am, I knew that that would never change if I didn't stop being a part of that relationship. So I had to end it, and it was way harder to do than... It was way harder for me to end a relationship than have the relationship end, if you know what I mean. Like, I think that if he had dumped me, I still wouldn't be upset, Fuck's sake. Like, I can't even talk about it. When I talk about my first ex who dumped me because of a tattoo, it's a funny story, Like, I got over that so quickly, because he was all wrong for me. He was a terrible person. To me, I don't know his, the rest of his life, but towards me, he was a terrible person. And ending that relationship, like, him ending that relationship was the best thing that could have happened for me then. He was really, really controlling, and when I got into this second relationship, and I've only had two, when I got into this second relationship, I thought it was certainly something that I needed. It was a breath of fresh air. You know, I could be myself. But what that turned into was me being myself, and then my significant other just absorbing into me rather than being his own person. And I don't know, that was just such a big question in my head. Like, is this really the kind of relationship I want? Is this good for him? And I don't think it's up to me to decide what's good for people, but I didn't feel good. And to an extent, I feel like I'm selfish for making that decision. And that's something that I struggle with. Like, I can't be selfish. Like, I can't be selfish. And living by myself, not having a family, like, and previously never being told that I wasn't allowed to be selfish, and I always had to serve the family or my siblings or my mother or my father. Like, that definitely stems from somewhere. I know that. But I struggle with it so much now because I don't know how to ask for help. I don't know how to... I don't know how to just do what's best for me rather than what's best for everyone else. Like, and when I do something that's good for me, when I do something that is best for me, it always has this like a time bomb attached to it, if you know what I mean. Like, it always has this ticking thought that will hit me like weeks or months later, and it'll just be like, you could have done so much for other people, but you decided to be a dick and do something for yourself. And I know that's an unhealthy thought to have. I know that. But I don't know how to get it out of my brain. Like, I live for myself. I struggle all the time, every single day of my life, you know. Even though the struggling is significantly less than it was before, it's still struggling. And I can't not stop pretending to have a brave face. Like, I can't stop doing that. And, you know, I'll give my time, my mental capacity, I'll give my everything to other people, but I won't give any of the kindness I show them to myself. I'm really bad at that. I'm really bad at just being kind to me, and it's something that I need to work on, but it's something that's so, for some reason, it's something that's so painful for me to do. It's something that's, and I never thought that would be something painful to do, because, you know, I'm an asshole. Like, I love me. Fuck's sake. And I'm trying to get better at doing that. But I'm like the worst person to myself at different points. Other times I'm a brilliant spokesperson for me. Like, I'm able to recognize what I'm good at and how I am, and, you know, I'm a very forthright person, but I'm so bad at acknowledging that I'm just doing my best out here. Like, I'm so bad at acknowledging that. And getting back to the point, I ended that relationship because it frankly wasn't good for him, and it was upsetting me, and it just wasn't working out. That was one of the major reasons that I decided to end that relationship. And I think that that's a very difficult way of ending a relationship. I think that if there's an obvious problem, like someone is manipulative or abusive, or there's, they're too far away, or things like that, or your paths just converge, I think that it's easier to break up relationships like that. But when it's simply that it's just not working out, I think that that's a very difficult situation. And I think that the decision I made was a very mature decision. I recognize that. But I just feel bad about it, because I remember how much pain I felt and how much pain I caused. And that bothers me. Like, I'm not the kind of person that throws up. I haven't thrown up until this incident. I hadn't thrown up in years, but I came home and I just felt so disgusted with myself that I couldn't keep anything down. Like, I couldn't even keep water down. And I called maybe like 2 or 3 people and talked through the whole thing. I couldn't stop. Just feeling so awful. Like I had ripped the innocence out of somebody. Like I had done something that I just wasn't capable of. And it hurt. It really hurt to do that. So the second thing, let's just move on, Faye. You're crying and we're watching you, but let's move on. The second thing was with work. So my original contract that was supposed to start from September got fucked up because of the consultant that I had, and I got a fresh contract to work at a secondary school. And I don't typically work in schools. I work in colleges. I work with older students. I work in FE colleges, so ages like 16 to 21 or 25. That's who I work with. But I hadn't worked in a secondary school in ages. And this was honestly the only contract available, so I was like, okay, yeah, I'll do it until I can find a role that is, what I normally do. And from the moment I walked into that school, the first thing that anyone said to me was, don't let the kids get away with anything. And I was like, what are they going to do to me? They're teenagers. I couldn't understand why there was that sort of rigidity. And it was a very smart school. Like, everyone had to wear a blazer, women had to wear skirts. It was a very smart school, and I was told that from beforehand, but I didn't expect the level of discipline. And I think from the first day, the place wanted to hire me. I had this real feeling that they knew that I was valuable and they wanted to have me in the school. But the more I worked at this school, the less I liked the school. Like, it just wasn't working out. It was just too strict. Every day I went in feeling guilty. I would come home feeling exhausted. I would really have to struggle to, maintain this facade of being okay there. I would have a minimum of 2 Red Bulls a day. It was less than ideal in terms of what I wanted. And I do contracts, so I work through an agency and I normally do contractual work. So this contract I had with the school was for until 2 weeks ago, was when the contract ended. But the school was offering me a permanent position with the company. And in the back of my brain, I wanted something, stable so that I can maintain, whatever life this is. And, it was something that, the pay grade was much more than I'm getting paid now. And I'm not getting paid like a fuck ton right now, but it was significantly more than what I am getting paid. I'd get paid holidays. I would, get sick pay, things like that. When you work for an agency, you don't really get that kind of things, especially in my field. And it just didn't matter to me. The money didn't matter. It was more my feeling of the place and how it was making me feel, that mattered. And I asked a bunch of people, like, am I being immature? Am I being childish for not wanting to work somewhere that I just feel guilty all the time? Like, I turn a corner and there's just some adult screaming at a kid and the kid's just like crying. Or, kids are just pushing themselves so hard that they're throwing up in the middle of class. Like, I can't work in an environment like that. It makes me feel so bad. And I stuck to my contracted time because I couldn't break the contract. But I spoke to the head of my department, and I told her, this place isn't just for me. It's not. It's not for me. I don't feel good coming in every day. And everything else about the school was perfect. Like, the team that I was working with, I've never had such a supportive team. The kids that I worked with were perfect. It was just the environment that was getting to me. And I couldn't look past it. And everyone I asked, everyone I told this was like, yeah, just leave. Like, you're not happy? Just leave. But I feel bad for doing that. Like, why do I feel bad for doing that? Like, I just can't let myself... I can't let myself make decisions for me. It's annoying. And then anything bad that happens from making selfish decisions. And I'm saying selfish because it is selfish. And I don't think that that's a bad thing. I don't think that being selfish is a bad thing. I just can't let myself be it. And anytime something bad happens, I always associate it to me like it's a karma thing. Like, I associate it to me making that selfish decision. So, for example, like all the bad things that have happened this month, I feel like I've been making myself feel like, rather, that all those bad things are because I've made selfish decisions. Like, it's a reaction. The universe is whatever, the reaction from the universe that I shouldn't have been selfish and that I shouldn't be selfish. And I need to stop thinking like that, because shit just happens. Like, nothing is planned. Everything just happens, and you need to roll with it. And I'm having such a hard time rolling with it. And I'm telling you, it's such a shitty feeling to feel like you're being punished for making the best possible decisions that you could have made. It's such a shitty feeling, and I really hate feeling this way, and I don't know how to make it stop. And because it's chronic, I don't know why I'm acting like this is an actual thing, because it keeps reoccurring, because I keep feeling like I'm being punished for something. It's just always in the back of my brain, and I don't know how to make it stop. Like, I don't know how to shut it up. And I'll just, and I guess this is part of it. I just the anxiety will write itself out. So I'll like cry like this for 30 minutes and then I'll be fine because it's just anxiety, you know. But it's deeper when I feel so unmotivated. Like, there have been days in the last few weeks where I haven't even eaten. Like, I've just been on the grind, looking for work, or, you know, working on my material, or you know, doing something else where I will just feel like I don't deserve to eat because I'm not making. Look, I don't want to throw a pity party for myself. Oh, there it is again. I don't want to throw a pity party for myself, but not only do I feel like I'm being punished, but I also punish myself because I made a decision that I feel like I'm being punished for. Like, isn't that fucked up? Like, isn't that fucked up? Lord knows I don't want to get into that right now. I'm not going to get into my eating disorders. That's a whole 50-part series. It has been a hot minute since I spoke about me and my brain and our very codependent relationship. It has been a hot minute since I spoke about that. And here it is. I know I'm gonna be fine. I know that for the most part, everything is gonna be okay. And I just wanted to take a moment to acknowledge that there is a problem, because I'm genuinely bad at doing that. And I'm so grateful that I have this outlet to do that, because anytime I call up someone to tell them, I feel like I'm wasting their time and I'm being selfish for telling them. And I know that this is like telling people on a much larger scale, but for some reason I don't feel as selfish doing this, because you're choosing to, you know, take part in this rather than me forcing it on you. And that's just like forcing it. Like, what is that? What is that? Why do I feel like, you know, me, like, I don't feel as though people telling me about their problems is them forcing their problems on me. Like, I encourage that. I encourage people to tell me their problems, but I cannot bring myself to tell people my problems. Like, how fucked up is that? For those of you who are worried about me, I have consulted my GP. I'm going to be seen by someone on Monday. I'm doing my best to sort out my mental health. I definitely need to get back into therapy, maybe get on some medication. I'm not sure what I need, but I need something. But I think someone's going to give me a call on Monday to sort all of that out for me. Thankfully, you know, I live in the UK. There's the NHS. All of those resources are free for me, at least up until a point. And I'm really thankful for that. And that's what I mean. Like, I'm not in any kind of dire straits. Like, I'm not. I'm doing way better than people around the world, but I still feel as though, to an extent, like, it's just gonna go back into me having issues with me being selfish. Like, I feel as though I have no right to complain because I'm not suffering, really, like other people are. But I am suffering, and that's valid. Like, I need to just, like, I don't just say that on camera. Like, I don't just say that for your benefit. I say that because I need to confirm that for myself, that it's okay. And it's annoying. It's annoying that I have to do that, because I can't just dive into a subject and be like, here's here's the thing. No, I have to sit there and I have to reassure myself like a little bitch. Like, like I can't, like I just can't accept it. And I would never ever impose that on someone else. Like, don't be selfish. I always tell people that they have every right to be selfish. It's just me. For some reason in my brain, I am the exception to everything that I tell everyone else. Like, my brain is just a hypocrite, to me. And it's just so unhealthy. But I think that's more or less it, and I feel a little bit lighter for talking about all of that. I'm sorry if this was just distressing to watch, but this is, a lot of my content is this, just me saying, I haven't done it in a while, but a lot of my content, I don't think I've done it since August actually, where I've just sat down and talked about my feelings, but this is a lot of my content. So if you're not here for this, thank you for joining me for a short period of time, but you're more than free to leave. This is a lot of my content because it's just, I think that first of all, it's important for me to be able to share whatever the fuck is going on in here with something or someone. I think that it's healthy for me to do it, and obviously, like, no one needs to watch this. I just need to get it out. And the other thing is, I think that mental health is just a topic that isn't widely talked about, especially not by brown people, which is, I'm going to get into the questions now. I think I'm going to address that in a second. But mental health is just, it's a very fresh topic that a lot of people are talking about now, and it wasn't talked about a lot previously. And I just want to add my voice to that. But I'm going to get into some questions. So I'm going to address the first one by Cardiff Atheist, who is one of my patrons. Thank you for sponsoring me. I don't know why you do, but thank you. I really, really appreciate it. If you see him around Twitter, his handle is @SecularHitchens. Give him a follow, show him some love, send him my love. Thank you for watching me and for following me and just generally supporting me. I really, really, really appreciate it. But his question is, how do we stop the rise of anxiety among the young? I think the time to be anxious is when you're young. I think that being anxious as a young person is normal because you haven't self-actualized and you're looking for approval from a lot of different places. So from your parents, from your teachers, from your peers, you're looking for external validation rather than looking for validation in and of yourself. And I think that there comes a point where you realize that that's unhealthy, and that's when you self-actualize. I think that it's inevitable for young people to be anxious. What we need to teach young people is how to cope with anxiety in a healthy way, rather than, just sort of letting them figure it out. I think that one of the unhealthiest things we do to young people is put them under severe amounts of stress that they don't know how to handle. So I'm not saying that they shouldn't work hard for things, they should, but they should be able to do it in healthy ways. And I think that we need to address that. And I think slowly, sorry, my nose is so blocked. I think slowly, educational organizations like schools and youth groups and things like that, we're slowly coming to the realization that that is the case, and that we need to, show young people how to deal with their stress, their anxiety, and whatever else comes from that, be that depression, eating disorders, whatever else. We need to allow them, give them the tools to be able to handle it properly. I think that that's really important. I think the other thing is that we as a community, we need to just free up speech. I think that we should try to instill this idea that you shouldn't be ashamed of the things that you have to say. Like, there have been so many cases, because I work with kids, there have been so many cases where girls, have a question they want to ask, whether it be about, their bodies, their sex lives, their family lives, like whatever, and they just don't ask because they're too ashamed to do it. And it's not just their families that make them feel that way, but also the schooling system and their peers that make them feel that way. Like I think that, and I've been told personally, like, don't talk, and I've only worked with over 16s for the last 2 years, and I've been told repeatedly, like, don't talk to the kids about, drinking and sex, and I'm sitting here like, they're gonna be adults, they have questions, I'm gonna answer them honestly. I don't think that we should be stopping them from asking questions, because that's the reason they're asking questions, is the way that they learn. That they're kids, they're impressionable, they should be able to say whatever they want. And I think that is a very key thing, and I see it. I do think it's because that many of the staff in the schooling system are from a different generation. I'm often the youngest staff member in a team, and everyone else has like 10 or 20 years on me. We need to allow young people to be able to voice whatever is concerning them without judgment, without treating them like a child and dismissing them. We need to allow them to be able to say what they have to say, and that's how I feel like that's healthy, in my opinion. You don't have to agree. The next question is, how do we cope with the effects of any mental health problem when there are no adequate resources available? That's probably should have thought about that before trying to answer it. So the person who asked this question is at Hope Springs 100, who has been a long time follower of mine. I personally view her as though she's my sister, and I know that she's in a country where all of those resources that are being addressed in this question are not available. I think that the first thing you should do is, the internet is open, so try and find as many resources as you can on the internet, but also don't just go to one site. Go to, find as much research as you can and then average them, just so you know that you've looked into everything that you can. I think that's the first thing. The second thing is that I think the biggest thing about mental health is, I mean, in my opinion and in my experience, the biggest problem in mental health is communication and not being able to talk about something. If you know that there's a problem with you, if you have already assessed that something is wrong, whether that be that you're anxious or you're depressed or you just don't know what it is, there's just something that's not quite right, you need to admit that to yourself and then tell somebody. I know that in our community it can be viewed as like a sign of possession, like they'll take you to an exorcist and shit, so maybe don't tell someone who is crazy, but tell someone you trust. Tell a close friend who you know they won't abuse your trust. I don't really know. I mean, I can offer you just sort of band-aid levels of techniques like breathing exercises where you just take deep breaths until you calm down. Most of the time with an anxiety attack, if you write it out, it lasts about 20 to 30 minutes, sometimes a little bit longer, sometimes a little bit less. But with an anxiety attack, it's just a panic that, has a rise and then it quickly falls. And those are band-aid, solutions to what could be much bigger problems. In my opinion, just research it as much as possible. See if you can find an online outlet. Talk about your problems. Talk about them on a forum. Tell someone you trust. Communicate that something is wrong. I think that those are good steps to take initially, but beyond that, I don't really know. I'm not a professional. I'm just a 24-year-old woman who, talks about her feelings on the internet. That's it. But I hope that you can find something, because I know how difficult that is, to be able to feel like you're trapped, but not in a place in your own mind like that. I know exactly how that feels, and it's not a great way to feel. So I hope you find something. The next question is, why do people from the older generation in countries like Pakistan, why do they not understand mental health issues? I think the reason that they don't understand is because it's not a visible problem, and I would argue that a lot of people from back home don't even take actual health issues as issues. Like, for example, when my mom was ill, like my mom got ill in 2013, and I suspect she was ill for much longer because when she was diagnosed in the 5th stage of, like, in terminal cancer. When my mom was diagnosed with cancer, everyone was just in denial. They were like, oh no, it's not cancer. It can't possibly be cancer. When the doctors are telling them that it's cancer. The solution to every single, illness that you have is if it's a cut, put some Vaseline on it, and if you're in pain, just take some paracetamol instead of like going to the doctor and figuring out what's wrong. I feel as though my mom only started taking health seriously when she actually got diagnosed with cancer. Like, there was, while she was ill, there was at one point where I had blood in my urine, like no tea, just like blood in my urine. And she was like, why didn't you tell anyone? Why have you been sitting with this? And I was like, well, I just noticed it. Like, that's why I'm telling you. And she was like, well, why didn't you say anything? That's so dangerous. That could be something to do with your kidneys. And I feel as though the only reason she like flipped out about it was because she experienced the same thing before being diagnosed with cancer. I'm fine. It was just like a UTI. But I've never seen her take health that seriously. And I think that, like, these are for visible problems that my parents would not take seriously. These are for visible problems. If we talk about mental health issues, which are just things in the brain, and especially when they are so consumed with religion and things like that to fix things, it just breeds this unhealthy thing of just being like, oh, you'll get over it. But you don't have the tools to be able to get over it. So, like, you don't have those. And they don't understand that. And I think, so that's part of it. I think that because it's not visible, and also they don't take actual health problems seriously. And I think the second thing is religion has a hand to play, because every time that I would express that I feel like I have depression or I'm anxious about something, every time that I would express that, everyone would just be like, oh, pray to Allah for guidance. Or like, we'll bring a sheikh in to do ruqya on you. And ruqya is like a form of exorcism, Islamic exorcism. And it's just not helpful, because it's not even a pseudoscience. It's just madness. It is just insanity. And I blame religion for that. I think that religion has a big part to play in why mental health isn't taken seriously in our communities, where they should be taken seriously, where people are very superstitious and they still believe in jinns and the influence of that. And it's just madness and stupidity, and it needs to stop, because it's unhelpful and unhealthy, and it's just disgusting. I think the third thing is that they've normalized this idea of being mentally unsound. They feel like it's something that everyone goes through and it's normal and we shouldn't worry about it. It's not a problem. Like, when I reported my dad, for example, and my dad's severely depressed, when I reported my dad for being physically abusive, one of the things that I kept being told was that, your dad's mentally ill. Yeah, and he wasn't doing anything about it, and he became abusive. But that wasn't the point. The point was, you knew your dad was mentally ill. You shouldn't have reported him. He's a diseased person. And it's just like, okay, well, when it counts, you don't care about mental health. But when I need to do something for myself, again, with the selfish thing, like when I need to do something for myself, you're going to blame me for reporting someone who is depressed instead of, acknowledge that I reported someone who was physically abusive to me. Like, almost put me in the fucking ground. Like, they've normalized that, and that's something that we need to acknowledge is not, like, normal. Yes, everyone goes through it, but needs to be handled in a medical way. Like, it can't just be allowed You can't just be allowed to be mentally unstable. And, you know, everyone just accepts the way you are. You need to deal with that problem in a healthy way, through medicine, through counseling, through whatever you need to do. And I think that our communities just don't acknowledge that, and we need them to, because it's a growing problem. The last and final question is a little bit off topic, but it is, what is the line between delusion and illness? So I think this is a reference to religion. So when a group of people hold a shared belief, why are we so accepting of that rather than one person just being fucking insane and, you know, saying that the world is flat and things like that? Why do we view one as a delusion and one as, you know, acceptable? Why is one an illness and why is one acceptable? I don't know. I don't know who made the world like that, but I think everyone is delusional in a little way. I think that delusions just come with being human to an extent. You know, all kinds of people have different beliefs, and it's not just religion. Religion is a big delusion, in my opinion. But I wouldn't say that everyone who is religious is mentally ill, and I wouldn't say that everyone with a level of delusion is mentally ill. It depends what you do with that delusion. So would I say that, like, ISIS members are mentally ill? Yeah, absolutely. But would I say your average everyday Muslim is mentally ill? No. Unless, you know, they have depression, anxiety. That's not what I'm acknowledging in terms of the religion part. You know, in the same way, like, do I think that Westboro Baptist Church members are mentally ill? Absolutely. Do I think that normal, everyday, not really practicing Christians are mentally ill? No. But do they both have delusions? Yes. I think it all depends how far that delusion goes. So, like, one of my personal delusions is that I'm to an extent superstitious. Like, for example, I can't trust people with a name. I'm not going to say what name it is because I don't want you to judge me too harshly. But especially if a man has a specific name, I'm less inclined to trust you based on my experiences of men with those names prior. And that is very superstitious and it's unfair, but it's a delusion that I have and a delusion that I stick to. I am someone who follows my gut. I don't do things until I feel like I have to do things. I feel like to an extent that's delusional and I should just do things whenever they're fucking necessary. To an extent, everyone has some form of delusion. It just depends how far you go with that delusion. You know, delusions are very good coping mechanisms, in my opinion. Not saying that they're healthy, not saying that they're healthy for anyone. I'm just saying that they're a coping mechanism to deal with however hard your life is. And I think religion, to an extent, is a delusion to deal with the fear of death, you know, the fear of dying. Not saying that it's a suitable solution or a healthy way of dealing with that fear, but that's what it is. And I don't necessarily think that you're mentally ill for wanting a coping mechanism for that fear. But when you start shoving it down other people's throats, that's when it becomes a problem. And that's when I feel as though you have an illness. So yeah, that would be my answer to that question, if any of that made sense. Thank you for watching this video. I don't know why you decided to, but thank you for watching it. I would like to say that, you know, I'm the worst to myself, and I wish I was better to myself. And I don't know what the first step on that road is. Maybe it's writing in a journal about how much I love me, but I do love me. I'm just very hard on myself sometimes, and it becomes a lot. If you enjoyed this, I'm just gonna move on. If you enjoyed this video, please do give it a thumbs up, leave a comment below, consider subscribing. I don't know which person would enjoy this video, but if you did, you know, get down with your bad self. If you didn't like this video, leave a dislike. Tell me why you didn't like this video. Feel free to unsubscribe. I always welcome, you know, varied views, alternate opinions on my channel. I think that we need to engender this idea that anyone can say anything. If you would like to support me in a more monetarily way, I have monetary way. I have a Patreon. Please do consider, becoming a patron if you would like to give a one-off donation. I also have a PayPal account where you can just send me money directly. I am in a little bit of a pickle. You're under no obligation to give me any money. No obligation at all. Like I said, most of the time I will be fine, but I am in a little bit of a pickle in terms of work right now, so any kind of donation would be greatly appreciated. Just eating my soul to say those words, but there you go. Thank you for being here, and thank you for just being a supportive group of people. I always see the same commenters all the time who are always rooting for me, and I really, really appreciate that. I should make a slide for that to put at the end of videos at some point. But thank you so much, and I will see you in the next video, hopefully in a more happy mood. Sober October is nearly over, and I can finally deal with all my problems in the most unhealthy way. But, not being sober this month has opened my eyes a little, so I'm definitely going to cut down, because it's just, it's an unhealthy way of coping with things. So I'm definitely going to cut down and not use, alcohol or any other kind of drug to avoid my problems. I need to face my problems head on. And that's important for me, and I've definitely learned that lesson through this month, and that's why I do it every year, and I will continue to do it every year. I think it's really important. But anyways, thank you, and I will see you in the next video.